guys, so I was recently contacted by Audible to see if I would be interested in working with them on a sponsored video. And I don't do a lot of sponsored content, I am sure you're aware of that, but I am a massive fan of Audible, which you may also be aware of. Definitely if you know me in real life. I never listen to music, I always listen to audiobooks, and Audible is a really easy way to do that, so I am constantly on my Audible app on my phone or on my computer. So when they did contact me, I was honestly thrilled and more than happy to do a video with them because I knew I would be sharing and recommending something to you that I knew I loved. So this month I've been listening to 2 new releases on audiobook on Audible, which also only just came out in hardback as well this month. And I thought I would use this video to discuss both of those books, do a little bit of a mini review for each, and also discuss why in particular I chose those as audiobooks and what I like about them as audiobooks in particular. There are some books which, you know, to be listened to that just add an extra something to them that is hard to place, but I'm going to try to do in this video for you. When I was younger and I used to listen to audiobooks, before Audible was really a thing, I had to wait until they came out on cassette tape or CD as I got a bit older. Yes, I did listen to cassette tapes. Now this usually took weeks, if not months, after the release of a book. So if there was a book I wanted to listen to on audiobook, I had to wait quite a long time after the actual physical book was released. But I have learned that Audible actually have a lot of books on audiobook released the same day they're released in physical copy. So the 2 books I decided to download this month were one that I actually have in physical copy as well, which is Mycroft Home by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Anna Waterhouse. And the other book I decided to download was The Heart Goes Last by Margaret Atwood, which I don't have a physical copy of, so we'll insert a picture here. These are both new releases, both of which are available now, have been out for a few days, and both are quite different, so I thought it'd be fun to talk about them in this video. Now both these audiobooks I've mainly been listening to on my iPhone. There's an Audible app available for Android, iPhones, all of the different technological spheres, and you can also listen to them on your computer. I like this because this is where I generally keep things like a little bit of music and like to listen to audiobooks in the gym, on the bus, when I'm walking places. Those are my favourite places to listen to audiobooks. Let's start off with Mycroft Holmes because this is the one I finished first. This is the one that I sped through the quickest. This is about 10 hours on audiobook and it is an incredibly engaging, easy, fast-flowing mystery. If you don't know, Mycroft Holmes is the fictional brother of Sherlock Holmes, the character created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And this book is a new story about the life of Mycroft Holmes before Sherlock Holmes was the infamous detective that we all know him as. In this book, Mycroft Holmes is 23 and he is newly engaged, working in his first position in the British government. He's a lot more naive and sort of warm-hearted than he appears in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle novels, and part of the story is how he becomes the person that he is in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's stories. So he's a young, fresh-faced man, although incredibly intelligent, and has that amazing deductive reasoning that his brother has as well. His life changes in this book. So that was quite interesting. I chose this book to listen to on audiobook because I already love listening to Sherlock Holmes stories on audiobooks. If you see my favourite audiobooks video, you know I love listening to both the original Sherlock Holmes mysteries on audiobook, but also new Sherlock Holmes mysteries on audiobooks. I absolutely love listening to these on audiobook. I love detective stories and mysteries on audiobook. If they're a good enough mystery and they're engaging, it's almost like watching like a good detective show, but longer. You really get into the mystery. It's really nice to hear the tones of voices and what's going on. I just think it's a genre that's very well suited to audiobook. Now it's very different from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. You can tell it's been written in the modern day and not in the original time period, although I think it does an excellent job of making you feel like you're in the late 1800s. But I think actually more so than most of the Sherlock Holmes retellings, it works because it's not about Sherlock Holmes, it's about Mycroft Holmes, so I didn't have as many preconceptions. I was a bit more open to see what it was all about, and because it's set so early on, when Sherlock Holmes is still 16 in this novel, that it's really not the Mycroft that we get glances of in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle novels. It's just a good story actually. Although I never recommend to people to read or listen to Sherlock Holmes stories other than the originals if they haven't read the originals, I will say that this book does stand alone and you could read it by itself. You wouldn't be unable to follow it, but I do feel like you won't get as much joy or as much of the extra little bits or the characterization things if you haven't read any Sherlock Holmes. Although I do think if you're a fan of books like The House of Silk by Anthony Horowitz, this one's probably a really good one for you. It had a similar feel to me. I think if you like The House of Silk, you'll probably like this, and I did really enjoy it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and because I already knew I loved Sherlock Holmes on audiobook, I was expecting to love this one, and I did. I do want to note though, because I've had conversations with people about things like this before, and I do agree, I cannot listen to a Sherlock Holmes audiobook in an American accent. It's too quintessentially British. It's set in Britain, the characters are British. It's just weird if Sherlock Holmes or Mycroft Holmes has an American accent. I wouldn't want to listen to Kill a Mockingbird in an English accent. So I am very pleased to say that the audiobook of Mycroft Holmes is read by an Englishman. And he's got that very proper English accent that I would expect from a Sherlock Holmes story. The narrator himself is called Damien Lynch. I think it's quite simple and fun and easygoing. I wouldn't say it's overly complex. There are bits that are predictable, but enough of a mystery that you never know exactly what's going on, and there is still something to wait for. And I just really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it if it sounds like it's your cup of tea. Let's move on to the second book I've been listening to from Audible this month. This is The Heart Goes Last by Margaret Atwood. Now, Margaret Atwood is an author I am already a massive fan of. I've now read 5 of her novels and some of her poetry and short stories, and she has quite the prolific backlog. This is her most recent book. This is a dystopian. It's not a dystopian set far, far off in the future, but almost a dystopian that is visible in the near future, where the markets have crashed and tons of people have lost their jobs, and amidst this a company has decided to set up a new community, a new way of living in an attempt to sort of restructure society. And our 2 main characters are Charmaine and Stan, who become 2 of the participants of this new social experiment, which essentially is like a closed off gated community where everything self-sufficient within, and the people in these communities take turn 1 month being a prisoner and doing in-prison work, and 1 month being a civilian and doing outside civilian work, and alternating back and forth. The chapters also go back and forth between Stan and Charmaine. So say the first chapter is told from Charmaine's perspective, the second chapter is told from Stan's perspective, and so on and so forth. Now, Charmaine and Stan are a married couple, so we're kind of getting their perspectives on a lot of the stuff that's happening to both of them, but also stuff that they're doing in their side lives that the other person doesn't know about. This book is unlike any other Margaret Atwood I've read in that it doesn't flip backwards in time. I can't speak for all of Margaret Atwood's books, but all of the other Margaret Atwood novels I've read have not been chronological. They've had a sort of consistent timeline that has gone backwards 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, 100 years, across the board, consistently jumping all over the place throughout the story, and that's what I'm used to with Margaret Atwood style, whereas this book is entirely chronological. We start at the beginning and then we go forward. I mean, they do have reflections on their past and things like that, just like a normal book would have. It's not as jumpy as a lot of Margaret Atwood books, so if that's something you don't like about Margaret Atwood, then this might be more of your cup of tea. It's also a bit more tongue-in-cheek. I want to say it's a comedy, but it's got kind of dark humour in there mixed in, a bit of black slapstick comedy mixed in with what's going on, and it kind of pokes fun at itself and the characters, but at the same time is incredibly disturbing, and a lot of the stuff that goes on is very strange. It's like a weird mixture of like a 1950s sitcom and a weird dystopian thriller horror. If that makes sense, but it kind of works. It's very different, but it does work, and I'm actually really glad I ended up downloading this one on audiobook. I've heard very mixed things about the book. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people are in between, but because it's got this slightly more tongue-in-cheek slapsticky feel about it, and the fact that it's told from a man and woman's perspective, I think it's actually more suited to audiobook, because you get a different narrator for the female parts, a different narrator for the male parts, and it kind of almost makes it like a radio play or a radio drama in the way that it's got those 2 different actors telling their 2 parts, and I really enjoyed that. And it's also really good to hear the people's tone of voice in this setting. Charmaine, who almost tries to be this like 1950s American housewife, although doing also really strange, not appropriate things and being involved in this strange experiment. It's so interesting having her tone of voice being read aloud. I really like that it maintains that like super sweet, bewitched kind of, you know, 1950s voice. It kind of makes it all the more disturbing. It adds an extra level that I really enjoyed, so I'm really glad I downloaded that one on audiobook. And I think that's one of the things with multiple perspective books. I think they work best in audiobook when they have different actors for different parts. It's an occasion where it adds something extra, and I think an audiobook does need to offer something more than just simply the story. It needs to be well voiced, well acted, well read. It needs to be dealt with in a very specific way, and that's what makes the difference. And in both of these cases, I feel like they were for both of these books, I feel like they were very well voice acted. The Heart Goes Last, I certainly wouldn't say is my favourite Margaret Atwood book. In fact, when I was listening to it, I didn't feel like I was really listening to a Margaret Atwood book. Although it was clever in areas like Margaret Atwood's writing style is, it just felt so different for me, but I did enjoy the book. Although if you asked me who wrote it and I didn't know, I probably wouldn't guess Margaret Atwood. I would still recommend it to those of you that think you like the sound of it and maybe aren't typically fans of Margaret Atwood, because I think it's so different that you might like it. If I should mention, in case some of you don't know, although I'm sure a lot of you do, that Audible does offer a free 1 month trial for anybody setting up an account. So if you've never had an Audible account before and want to try an audiobook because there's a book in particular you know has come out an audiobook that you're interested in, or because you've never listened to an audiobook before and want to give it a go, then you can do so for free. The way Audible works is that every month you pay an amount of money and you get a credit, or you can sign up and pay slightly more and get 2 credits. Once you get your credit, you can use that credit then to buy an audiobook every month. But like I said, with an Audible free trial, the first month is for free and you can listen to your first audiobook for free. This offer works for everybody. Definitely check it out if you've never signed up to Audible before. And if you are an Audible member and think either of these 2 books sound of interest to you, I think they're really good as audiobooks and would highly recommend them. I think that's all there's left to say for now. If you have any books that you particularly like in audiobook format, then please let me know in the comments down below, because I love audiobooks. There's always an occasion for me to listen to audiobooks and I'd love to hear your recommendations. So until next time guys, happy listening as well as reading, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye!